What is a sonnet? The sonnet came to being during the 13th century in Sicily. Giacomo dei Lentini is credited with developing the sonnet form. The word itself derives from the Italian sonetto, which derived in turn from the old Provençal word sonnet, meaning a little poem or song. Sonnets are highly structured, perhaps mechanic even rather than organic, and follow a strict rhyme scheme. All sonnets contain 14 lines. Sonnets are traditionally written in iambic pentameter. A sonnet is typically non-narrative. It captures a specific moment or feeling. Sonnets often address large issues of the human condition, such as love, war, triumph, tragedy, or heroism. A typical sonnet poses a problem or question in the first part of the poem. And my mistress's eyes are nothing like the sun, for example. The problem is addressed, although not necessarily resolved, after the volta, or turn, which occurs about 2/3 of the way into the poem. And yet, by heaven, I think my love is rare, as any she belied with false compare. This is an example from Shakespeare's Sonnet 130. As you'll recall, in traditional verse, rhythm is measured in metric. This refers to meter, not the decimal measurement system, feet. An iamb is a type of metric foot. An iamb typically consists of an unstressed syllable followed by a stressed syllable. Pentameter means that each line consists of 5 metric feet. So, in a typical sonnet written in iambic pentameter, each line consists of 10 alternating, unstressed, stressed syllables. Reading iambic pentameter can result in a very sing-song rhythm, which demonstrates early poetry's close relationship to song and music. We mourn in black. Why mourn we not in blood? The curfew tolls the knell of parting day. This is an example from Shakespeare's Henry VI, Act 1, Scene 1, in which you can see how the iambic pentameter can result in such a voice. The Italians, as noted before, were the first to develop the sonnet. And a typical Italian sonnet, or a Petrarchan sonnet, consists of 8 lines with 2 rhyme sounds in an A-B rhyme pattern. It goes A-B-A-B or A-B-B-A, A-B-B-A, and the turn occurs after the first octave, or the only octave, and then the sestet, which is 6 lines with 2 or 3 different rhyme patterns, is where we see the resolution after the proposition. The proposition is the question or problem that is posed to us in the first octave, and the resolution, or at least the way the proposition is addressed, occurs in the sestet, which occurs after the first octave. For example, this is Sonnet 26 by Elizabeth Barrett Browning, which was written in the typical Italian Petrarchan style with the ABBA rhyme pattern. I lived with visions for my company, instead of men and women years ago, and found them gentle mates, nor thought to know a sweeter music than they played to me, but soon their trailing purple was not free. Of this world's dust their lutes did silent grow, and I myself grew faint and blind below their vanishing eyes. Then thou didst come to be, beloved, what they seemed, their shining fronts, their songs, their splendors, better yet the same, as river water hallowed into fonts. Met in thee, and from out thee overcame my soul with satisfaction of all wants, because God's gifts put man's best dreams to shame. So, although Elizabeth Barrett Browning was an English poet and sonneteer, she tended to write in the Italian or Petrarchan style of sonnet. The best-known sonneteers to utilize the Italian sonnet structure include, among them, Elizabeth Barrett Browning, as we just saw, Francis Petrarch, for whom the structure is often named, and Dante Alighieri, who's best known, of course, for his Inferno, Purgatorio, Paradiso cycle. English, or Shakespearean Elizabethan sonnets, have a rhyme scheme that consists typically of 3 quatrains and ends with a rhyming couplet. The quatrains are 3 different rhyme schemes, which consist of A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F, and then the closing rhyming couplet, which is G, G. An example of this comes from Michael Drayton's Sonnet 37. Dear, why should you command me to my rest, when now the night doth summon all to sleep? Methinks this time becometh lovers best. Night was ordained together friends to keep. How happy are all of other living things, which, though the day disjoined by several flight, the quiet evening yet together brings, and each returns unto his love at night. O thou that art so courteous else to all, why shouldst thou, night, abuse me only thus, that every creature to his kind doth call, and yet 'tis thou dost only sever us? Well could I wish it would be ever day, if when night comes you bid me go away. You'll see that this is different from the Italian form of a sonnet, or the Italian structure of a sonnet, in that there are several different rhyme patterns in the initial quatrains that end with a rhyming couplet. The most well-known practitioners of the English structure of a sonnet include William Shakespeare, for whom the structure is often named. It tends to be called a Shakespearean or Elizabethan structure as well as an English structure. Edmund Spenser, who has a variation of the English structure that's also known as the Spenserian structure. And Thomas Wyatt, who is credited for introducing the English structure of the sonnet. To recap, a sonnet will always consist of 14 lines. It's traditionally written in iambic pentameter. It presents a question or a problem that's known as the proposition. The sonnet addresses the proposition after the volta or the turn. The Italian structure consists of the octave and then the volta, which occurs after the octave or octet, and then a sestet. The English structure consists of 3 quatrains and a couplet, and the turn typically occurs at the 8th or 9th line, or after the first 2 quatrains. Modern sonnets retain the 14-line structure, but may not be strict with respect to meter or rhyme schemes. This presents a thought to ponder. If you abandon the strict structural and metric requirements of a sonnet, is it still a sonnet? Billy Collins, the poet, has written a somewhat meta-sonnet. It is a sonnet that is called Sonnet, in which he speaks about sonnets, and perhaps he can answer this question best for us.
Sonnet. All we need is 14 lines, well, 13 now. And after this one, just a dozen, to launch a little ship on love's storm-tossed seas. Then only 10 more left like rows of beans. How easily it goes, unless you get Elizabethan and insist the iambic bongos must be played and rhymes positioned at the ends of lines, one for every station of the cross. But hang on here while we make the turn into the final 6, where all will be resolved, where longing and heartache will find an end, where Laura will tell Petrarch to put down his pen, take off those crazy medieval tights, blow out the lights, and come at last to bed.